This is what The Mummy looked like in 1999. Nope, this isn't a scene from a David Lean movie. It's actually Stephen Sommers. Yes, that's Stephen Sommers. I don't think this is a movie that needs any kind of revindication.
Serves you right.
We all agree it was, is, and will remain great when we show it to our kids. And this majestic in scale, action-packed, dynamic, fun, and iconic film that shaped 2000s adventure cinema almost didn't happen. And it is a perfect example of how adventure cinema as a genre has long been gone. And now, not even 3 decades later, we look back on it with longing nostalgia. We all remember the late 90s and early 2000s adventure films: The Mummy, Van Helsing, The Legend and Mask of Sorrow, Pirates of the Caribbean. All of those are now remembered as iconic, memorable films that we can rewatch on loop. So, what made the films of that era so memorable in the first place? Well, they all shared more than one defining trait. Iconic protagonists, great character dynamics, clever cinematic action and camera work, visual scale, and craftsmanship behind groundbreaking technologies for their time. And we will discuss every one of those using The Mummy as an example. Ironically, a Universal Pictures remake that, at the time, only wanted to be a discreet cash grab modern take of the 1937 classic, until someone came and changed the game.
I'm Stephen Sommers, the writer-director of The Mummy.
When Universal was struggling to find the right script and director, stuck on the idea of remaking the 1937 version with a very limited 12 million budget, it was Sommers who convinced them to completely change The Mummy's iconography and genre, and instead make a grand, large-scale adventure film. From that more commercial and ambitious vision, Universal expanded the budget from 12 million to 80 million, betting on the winning horse. One of the reasons The Mummy and later Van Helsing worked so well with audiences and became timeless is that Stephen Sommers clearly understood what audiences loved about other popular genres, especially beloved franchises that had proven effective for decades. For example, while The Mummy is light horror, it runs on the rails of adventure cinema that Steven Spielberg established with Indiana Jones. And while Van Helsing takes place in Gothic Transylvania with vampire myth elements, Sommers gives his protagonist the background and personality of a secret agent like James Bond. With that, Sommers became the spearhead of Universal's monster catalog, at least for 3 films, because Universal lost momentum after those releases, and due to the high production costs of Van Helsing, they hit the brakes. They wouldn't attempt it again until the unfortunate 2017 effort, which failed to understand why these films resonated with audiences in the first place. Analyzing the most successful genres, Sommers shaped 2 heroes who are both distinctive and charismatic, both motivated by romance. He even gave Van Helsing a tragic and more emotional arc than this type of adventure hero typically gets, again leaning closer to the lone, determined secret agent archetype defined by his profession. They are simple, not built on complex premises, but effective in carrying flashy and fun stories. Characters that would later fall under the label iconic, much like Jack Sparrow, a successor to the movement this film helped establish in the early 2000s. We can easily remember these characters partly because the actors portraying them are or were incredibly famous and widely recognized, but also because they have built-in personalities that work perfectly with the second key trait of a fun adventure movie. An iconic protagonist is not enough to keep the wheels turning. That personality needs some kind of friction and resistance. Otherwise, it wouldn't just shine. And I think dynamics is the key word that defines this movie.
Get me the hell out of here!
Friction between mismatched characters thrown together by chance.
Oh no, what are you doing here?
Goodbye, Benny.
A spoiled adult con man, a clumsy but kind-hearted librarian, a love-struck ex-soldier, greedy cowboys, and a slippery trader who would literally sell his soul to the devil. Together they build the threads that sustain not only the plot and narrative progression, but also the film's character, humor, pacing, and personality. Sommers repeats this formula in Van Helsing, a roster of contrasting characters forced to coexist within the same story, for both comedy
Actually, it's 7 men.
and drama. The adventure genre turns what could classically be called dramatic conflict between characters' motivations into a playful friction between opposing personalities, allowing for constant, superficial but fun beats. But iconic protagonists and strong character dynamics are complemented by equally strong direction.
Not right now, it isn't.
These films, while not necessarily works that left a visual imprint strong enough to shape entire generations, do have a strong sense of craftsmanship and clear vision of what they set out to achieve. They are entertaining, but they also respect the audience. What do I mean by that? Today, everything tries to keep you stimulated through editing. Conversations built on constant shot-reverse shot, or action sequences cut so aggressively that your brain never gets a break. These movies aimed to do the same thing, keep you engaged, but with a greater sense of elegance, even in simple ways, like camera movement, blocking, and more playful visual staging that feels entertaining and satisfying to watch, and keeps the film visually dynamic. It's something that's becoming increasingly rare in mainstream cinema, which now tends to rely more on cutting between static shots without much internal rhythm. Let's look at one of the opening scenes of The Mummy. Literally the first shot that establishes the time period in which the movie will unfold. Look at the layered composition and its movement. First, it transitions from glorious Egypt to a memory of what it once was, from empire to ruins that are now merely the battlefield of an army ignorant of where it stands. But it also establishes the immediate conflict once the camera moves. On the horizon, scale is used to present this massive army charging forward. Now let's look at how the protagonist is introduced. In this two-layered shot, the stakes of the battle are established, how terrified the army we care about is, and through dialogue and wardrobe we are given key context about the protagonist. Both shots clearly echo Steven Spielberg's camera placement, giving internal rhythm and movement to scenes through dynamic blocking that is always fun to watch. They carry intentionality, scale, impact, and therefore visual storytelling. Even in non-action scenes, The Mummy remains memorable in how it stages scenes. Let's look at the scene where Evelyn and O'Connell argue about whether to stay and fix what they unleashed or just run away. On paper, it's an exposition scene repeating key information, but it also contains script-level conflict. Do we stay or do we go? In screenwriting, each small narrative moment that shifts the flow of a scene toward a positive or negative direction is known as a beat. This action with the suitcase visualizes the rhythm and balance of beats between the characters as they argue. The blocking and internal rhythm keep the argument agile. It feels natural, letting the actors flow. Comically, the conflict is represented through the action of packing and unpacking the suitcase, and it isn't until Evelyn crushes O'Connell's fingers with that insert that she delivers the strongest argument and the tension escalates dramatically. The scene ends negatively when the hero rejects his responsibility. If we return to modern adventure filmmaking and how exposition scenes are staged, again, speaking over the images feels redundant. It's also worth mentioning how aesthetically satisfying this film is. And it's not just because the cinematography is beautiful, it's because it was shot in a real desert with tangible temperatures captured on the camera, with real physical sand texture. Without sounding hyperbolic, it feels closer to Lawrence of Arabia than to a modern blockbuster. If you can watch these movies again and again and again and again, it's because of that. They are genuinely well thought out, built for success from the writing itself, which understands character dynamics and places those characters in fun, creative action sequences. And maybe that's the real reason why The Mummy still works. Not because we watch it as kids, not because it reminds us of a different time, but because it belongs to a moment in blockbuster filmmaking when spectacle still had to be engineered with intention.